Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to explain the concept of opposition. The concept of opposition is very important in chess because it helps you play better in games. If you don't know what is an opposition, opposition is a way to oppose the enemy king. So in this case, this is an example of a basic opposition. In this case, you see that both the kings are aligned in the same file, separated by one square, right? And the person who has the move does not have the opposition. Okay, so if it's black's turn to move, white has the opposition. If it's white's turn to move, then black has the opposition. So the ideal situation in which both the kings are face to face and it's the opponent's turn to move is said to be that you have the opposition. If this is the situation and it's your opponent's turn to move, then you have the opposition. The goal of opposition is to oppose the enemy king, prevent him from coming in any direction. So if in this case the white moves to the right, and so let's say if white has the move, then black has the opposition. If white king goes to the right, to this square, then black king will go to this square, thereby maintaining the opposition. If white king goes to this square, then black king will go to this square, thereby maintaining the opposition, right? And so opposition exists not only just separated by one square, but it can exist separated by many squares. So if this is the position, this is called a distant opposition, where the number of squares separating the kings are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So opposition can also exist in diagonals, right? In distant opposition, wherein two kings are facing each other with more than one square, there is a rule to remember. The rule is the person to move with an even number of squares between the kings is able to retain the opposition. The person to move with an even number of squares. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 squares, and the person to move, which is white, will be able to retain the opposition because the number of squares between the two kings is 6, which is an even number, right? And the person to move with an odd number of squares between the king is not able to retain the opposition. So whenever you are in a distant opposition situation, you must ensure that the number of squares between you and your enemy king is 6 and you have the move. So in this example, it is white to move and the number of squares between them is 6. Hence, white will be able to retain the opposition. Let's see how it happens. King d2, king d7. So if king e7, then king e3. Again, black has to move king d6 and then king d4. See, now it's black to move and white has the opposition. If king e8, then king e2, not king e3. Then black will play king e7 and black will gain the opposition. King e7 and king e3, king f6, king f4. Right? So king d2, king d7, king d3, king d6, king d4, and it's black turn to move. And he loses opposition by force. Okay, so the same concept is also applicable diagonally. To retain the opposition, you have to create a situation that when you move, there is an even number of squares separating you and the opponent king. Now, continuing from our last example, what happens when the kings are not aligned? So, does opposition exist when the two kings are not connected or aligned in any way? The answer is yes, it exists. Just because the kings aren't aligned now does not mean it won't be aligned in future. So, opposition exists between kings even if they seem to be disconnected in a way, I mean, not aligned in properly. So, in this case, how does the white king or the black king retain the opposition? The rule to remember is you have to create a rectangle. You have to create an imaginary rectangle with both kings placed in the corner square of the same color, and it is opponent's turn to move, right? So if it's white to move, the rectangle is, see, black king is in white color, so white king also has to go to the white square, to the light square, right? If black king was in a dark square, then white king had to go to a dark square. The first rule is that you have to always move your king to the same square where the opponent king currently is. The opponent king currently is in a light square, so you have to move to light square. Now the rectangle is A2, E2, E8 and A8. This is the rectangle. So white has to move to a rectangle to a light square which creates a rectangle between the enemy king. In this case, B8 is not the B8 can also be the rectangle. So in this case, the rectangle can also be, let me just close this. The rectangle can also be this one, right? So king A2 is also possible, and king B1 is also possible, right? So if white moves king A2, he forms a rectangle A2, E2, E8, A8. So both kings are on a light square and it is black to move. So white is able to retain the opposition. Similarly, if white moves king B1, he forms a rectangle B1, E1, E8 and B8 while both kings are on a light square and it is black to move. However, if white moves to B2, then he forms a rectangle B2, E2, E8, B8. He forms this rectangle and it is black to move, so white will not be able to retain the opposition. Black will play king e7 and now black creates the rectangle e7, b2, b8 and both kings. So this rectangle will be created and then black will regain the opposition or gain the opposition. So let's see what happens when white plays king b1. He goes to this square. So king b1, king d7, king a2, king c6, king a3, king c5, king a4, king c6, king a3. So this way white is able to retain the opposition. If king a2, then king d7, king b3, king d6, king b4. See, white is able to retain the diagonal opposition. So the rule to remember is when your king is in a distant opposition situation and both the kings are not aligned in the same file, you have to create an imaginary rectangle so that when your king has to first move to a square where your enemy king is. The enemy king is on a light square, so you have to move to a light square. So if this is the light square, then the rectangle is this one, this one, this one, and this one. Or the rectangle can also be this one, this one, this one, and this one. But if you move to a dark square, if you move here, then the rectangle becomes this, and black will move here, and then black gains the opposition. So always remember, move to the same square of your enemy king and create an imaginary rectangle. That way you will be able to retain the opposition.